Over the past year, I've taken note of tons of things that I've learned, tons of different strategies, lessons, tactics, etc. in all my businesses. And I want to take some time to put my thoughts together. Number one, I wanted to make a YouTube video so that way hopefully you guys can learn from some things that I've learned in my business. Number two, just going through this exercise is very powerful in my opinion. And I try to do it every year. I try to do it because just the process of remembering the things you learned and writing them down will help you remember them. And obviously, if you make a mistake, not a big deal because I don't consider that a failure. But making the same mistake over and over and over again, that's pretty much a failure. So don't want to do that. Anyways, if you don't know me, my name is Tyler Link. I own a concrete company that does $3.1 million a year. It's concrete, and then we do some lighting in the off season. In the past, actually, I used to also talk about my landscape company that was under the umbrella of my concrete company. So it was like big concrete company up here, which had like a little sister landscape company and sister lighting company. Landscape company went away. And so because of that, we lost about $1 million in revenue from that. But this is actually one of our most profitable years ever. So I'm very excited to just talk about that, share about that. And one of the reasons why I did that was based on a theory, and the theory actually came true. So that's going to be kind of cool. Share that with you guys. Anyways, I also own Concrete CEO, which is a marketing and coaching company for other concrete contractors. And we went from about 500,000 up to 1.1 million while doing it, relatively passively because I still run my concrete company day in and day out. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see that we're, progressing very well with that. This was like a big de-risk year for me and some things that I want to share. So I actually I used to own 2 houses, and literally just because I was like, I want to do what everyone else wants to do and get into real estate, right? And because you're going to make money in multiple things. Well, I actually ended up deciding to sell that investment property, and I cashed out a little over, what was it? Like 380,000. And so that was pretty nice. I used some of that money to pay off all of basically all my personal debt. So all of our cars, we bought a new car for my wife, all in cash. My concrete and lighting company profited our biggest year ever. We did about 18% on our money. And so from that, again, big de-risk year this year. We actually took all that. I paid off almost all of my equipment. The only one that I didn't pay off is my dump truck. Still owe some money for that. But now we own 7 trucks that are all pretty dang new trucks. They're all 2022 or newer. I own 2 skid steers, 2 mini skids, and 1 excavator. And I own 6 dump trailers. So own tons of stuff. So this year, the theme of it was kind of consolidate, focus, and basically just recenter, right? Because I think in what I want to share, and even my first learning lesson I had was the power of focus. I never really realized how much having so much crap affected me. And when I say affected me, I'm saying you guys ever hear the stories of how Zuckerberg back in the day, I'm not sure if he still does, but instead of him having he's one of the richest people on the planet. If he wanted to, he could buy all those stupid designer clothes, which I think are totally ridiculous. Like the Gucci ones where it literally looks like someone spilled paint on them and they're supposed to look cool. I'm probably just not fashionable, but I think those are pretty dumb. Well, anyways, if anyone could afford them, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. And the old stories was he would wear the same style shirt and jeans and clothes every single day. And so back in the day, the reporters would go up to him and they'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you wearing such basic stuff? Why do you wear the same thing every single day? And his answer was, well, I don't want to, exhaust my mental capacity on making a nominal decision. And, in my past, I didn't even realize how having so much crap affected my ability to just be effective as a leader and grow the things that I actually want to grow. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. So number one, with, some of my personal stuff, like getting rid of my rental property, I was making money. It's not like I wasn't making money. We were actually cash flowing pretty well. I can't even explain it, but just getting rid of it. And even though I didn't think about it that much, it's been such relief to just not have that. The other thing is I'm already trying to get really good in business. So I don't need to be really good in business and be an amazing real estate investor. I don't really need that. Also, not that I'm super wealthy by any means, but with the level of income that me and my wife make, I really don't need money. Okay. I'd rather enjoy my life, enjoy the journey, save up cash, and live in a place of less worry, essentially. So sold my rental property. I shut down my landscape company, which it was crazy because that was one of my biggest reservations that I've had in a really long time because the landscape company was also doing really well. we were doing $1 million a year in revenue. I was profiting 20% off of it. Like it was like pretty dang good. Like it felt kind of silly to do that. But looking back, the amount of mental clarity that you get, number one, from being able to focus, it's crazy because just me being more present, we had our most profitable year I've ever had because we're not trying to do so much crap all at once, right? And some other lessons that I learned later, which I'm going to get into, is artificially limiting supply while demand stays higher to increase prices. I think one of the biggest things that I learned from it is old me wanted to just keep risking more and more. And I thought, like, essentially what I was doing, in my opinion, is I knew, like, basically with my eyes closed, how to start a $1 million business. Like, it's so easy because I've done it now like a handful of times. And so what I didn't realize is I wasn't able to basically beat the big bosses of business, which for me is about being a better leader, about running our company with more direction, about being more lean and profitable. And when you have so many things going on at once, like you're kind of like, I was almost neglecting the actual problem that was in my business. Instead of solving that, I was choosing just to solve the same problem over and over again and not realizing that by me doing that, I didn't actually have the mental capacity to actually solve like the big issues that were at hand. So this year was like a big cleanup year. And because we did that, because I shut all that stuff down, I even did simple things, right? Like I hired a maid from my house so we didn't have to clean our house anymore. I hired a lawn care company, which if you guys saw my lawn, you guys would probably like laugh. My neighbors probably think I'm nuts because my lawn's not even that big. And we have people come and mow it every year, pick up dog poop, just like the small things like that. I can't even describe, but just having like all of your focus and attention go towards one thing, like I feel so good about the future. And even in like the direct moment, we were able to go from about like 5 to 10% profit up to 18% profit. I mean, totally crazy. So even though we did less revenue, way more profitable, we are on a much more stable foundation for growth. So I'm very excited for that. So the best way I could like describe this is like acting like a laser instead of a flashlight, right? Instead of spreading all your energy out like this, it's all coming inward. And, I think we're able to accomplish a lot this year because of that. Another big thing is because I had extra time and extra money, I was able to reinvest in myself more so than I've ever done. So I joined a group, the Inner Circle by Jeremy Haynes. That group is $10,000 a month. I got in a little bit before that, so I'm paying $5,000 a month. And it's for like top tier marketers, top tier business owners. Essentially, I'm trying to reskill and get even better at marketing. Number one, because I love marketing, but also that's just like the thing that I want to do in the future personally. And I've learned from my mistake of the past, which is learning everything yourself. But so number one, like just learning all those marketing skills, I can't wait to share those with you guys. Actually, like one of the other reasons that I'm making a video like this, which is like pretty, it's basically unscripted, uncut, very like organic, and it's not my typical YouTube video, is I'm actually preparing a really long free marketing course for you guys that's going to come out here on YouTube. I have no idea how long it's going to be, but I'm guessing like 4 hours-ish, who knows? So subscribe if you guys want to see that. But anyways, I was learning a lot about marketing, but that's not actually my learning lesson. I actually learned a different lesson that I want to share with you guys. And, in the past, I was in business groups, but they're still full of like pretty small businesses. And when I say pretty small, like they were all like around my size or smaller, right? Especially if you go to like a lot of contractor events, in my opinion, like if you're doing like, say, the Tom Reber stuff or whatever, and no offense to him or the people that do that, but like I noticed when I was like in there, I was like one of the big guys and we do not have a big business. Okay. I consider big business like minimum $10 million a year or more. And even that, I think according to the US government, small business is anything under 500 employees. So like think about that, right? Like we all probably have like micro businesses and we perceive someone that has 100 employees as like a big business. That's still like 1/5 of what the US business considers a small business. Pretty crazy. But anyways, I get around all of these successful people and it really reframed like what it means to be successful. I'm really glad that I did because when I got around this particular group and people that are paying $5,000 a month to be a part of a group, it's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money. But what I noticed that I did that, I stretched myself because I'm like, man, I mean, I make money, but like $5K a month, like that's not like a laughing matter to me. Like I still don't want to lose $5K. And so I get in this room and there's businesses doing $5 million a month, right? There's businesses doing $8 million a month. They're huge. They're these big businesses. And they're guys that like not even that old, right? They're like relatively young. And what it actually did for me is one, learning all the tactics and strategies that I can't wait to share and implement for our marketing clients' behalf and my own concrete company's behalf. But number two, just reframing what it means and what it takes to be successful. Okay. Because like I said, like with the friends and the people that I know, I'm the hardest worker, right? I work anywhere from like 6 o'clock to like 5 o'clock. And then I'll work weekends like a lot. Like at night, I tinker with stuff. And I used to be like, damn, like, I'm pretty dang productive. And keep in mind, by the way, I had to go through this like whole thing with an employee on my team the other day. Because I was even telling him, like, dude, I need to be like way more productive. And he's like, you're really productive. You put in a lot of hours. And I had to even tell him, like, dude, you know what I've realized is like, it's not even about the hours that you put in. It's about how productive you're being during those hours. And until I really got in front of a room like that, it really opened my eyes into, number one, how much people could work, but even beyond that, how much they can get done in like an hour. It's insane. Because they don't mess around. Like they don't like do stupid crap and get distracted. Not to say that these people are superhuman by any means. But, one of my biggest turning points is like I booked a call with my coach and I just booked it for a Friday. I'm pretty sure it was for a Friday. And I got up to the time that I was going to have the call with my coach. That's the coach that's in this $5,000 per month group. And I was like, oh crap. Today's the 4th of July. I'm like, he's probably not going to answer. I'm like, because it was like the 4th of July at like 5 o'clock PM for him because he's Eastern and I was Mountain. And he answered and like, he didn't even say like happy 4th. And again, I'm not saying this is good or healthy, but it rewired because I just know so many people would never do that. And maybe that's not even the best example. That was a little bit profound to me because like, to me, I'm like, oh, well, that's just what people do. They take off their holidays. But, it was really good to get in front of a room of people that they're so driven and they're such high capacity. It really reframed my like mental pattern around what it's like to be successful. Okay. At the end of the day, I think there's something very freeing about just knowing what it takes to make a lot of money. And then ultimately, like you could decide as a person what you want to do. It's at least freeing to not sit there and be like, man, I think something's wrong with me. Like you just start to realize you're like, oh, wow, there's really nothing special about most people. They just work really hard. So at that point, like instead of you just being like, man, I want to make a ton of money, you kind of start to recognize both sides, right? You start to recognize, well, I could get that, but I would need to live like this or sacrifice this, or I could get to there. It's just going to take longer. So I think getting around people that are doing big things at minimum gives you perspective, which I enjoy perspective either way, whether I choose to live like them or not. It just is nice to actually see what it takes, see like someone who's actually like physically making in profit, $4 million a month, be my coach. They come thinking a whole different way about life and business. And it's very like refreshing. And it's cool. You don't even know how small you think until you get around people like that. So number 3 is question everything, especially the things that we believe to be 100% true. So speaking of Tom Reber, and again, I didn't even start this video thinking that I was just going to have like a poo-poo on Tom Reber because there's really nothing bad about him. I actually really enjoyed working with him back in the day. But sometimes what you have to realize, right, in business, and something that I didn't realize, is what gets you from like, okay, say if you did A to B by yourself, you hire someone and they get you from B to C. Well, what you also have to realize is what got you from B to C might not get you to D, right? And so how this affected me in my business is back in the day, I was probably, man, how big was I back then? I think I was about like $1.8 million in my concrete company. And I was so busy doing estimates. I was so busy. And I wasn't even making that much money. And so I found Tom Reber's sales process, and their whole promise was like, hey, do the same sales in less time. And I was like, great, that's what I need. So I hired him. I learned the process. It was called Shinfu or something like that. And, we used it and it actually did good. I was able to grow my business. I went from like 1.8 up to the $3 million a year mark. But at this point, this year I was stuck. And luckily, one of the other investments that I got to make was I spent $24,000 getting into an Alex Hormozi program. And I actually had a phone call with him because of that. I posted on the YouTube video or on my YouTube channel, by the way, if you haven't seen it. I'm sure a lot of you guys have. But anyways, he was like sitting there and he's like listening. He's like, wait, tell me about your sales process. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, we do a phone call, we build up a lot of pain, and then I like give someone a rough quote, and then I like go out there only if they're super serious. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I learned it from Tom Reber. Again, nothing bad about that whole process. But long story short, I implemented the new sales strategy, which that strategy is way less qualification. And we are doing this huge presentation in person. I'm doing anchor upsells. I'm giving a finance downsell. Like, we're doing so much stuff, and our close rate has went through the roof. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, I was trying to think, I was like, man, why the heck didn't I see that? And what I realized is that we question everything except for the things that we for sure believe to be true. And so what I challenge you is if you're at a sticking point and other people have worked past that, I would try to seriously go through and critique all of your business systems and just realize there might have been something that served you to get to where you are now that is actually hindering you from growing. So keep in mind, my big pain back then was having too many leads for one person. Well, all I had to do was increase my skill set, and I had to learn how to hire other people to sell jobs for me. And so once I did that, it kind of eliminated that time constraint. And so once I eliminated the time constraint, now it was about capitalizing more on our existing leads and not just throwing a ton of leads down the toilet. Like, we had about an 8 to 10% close rate on lead to sale, and now we've literally over doubled that. So I can't even tell you guys how nice it's been. Like, even I'm sitting here, what's the date today? It is November 21st. So a little bit before Thanksgiving, I'm booked out until next year, which for me, being a concrete contractor in November in Colorado, like, that's crazy. At least for me. Like, a lot of you guys might be sitting there like, that's me every single year. Like, well, good for you, dude. But, for me, that was never me. And so we plan on scaling up a lot next year because of that. So yeah, that's the other thing. It just was like a good reframe to realize that just because something served you well, try to think about why it served you well. And if that pre-existing condition wasn't there, like it was for me, it was a lack of time. I needed to find the new sales strategy that was going to help get us to the next page. And for some reason, I thought in the past, instead of changing my sales strategy, I'm just going to get more and more and more leads. And that's what we've been doing, right? Like, I think this year we got like 2,800 leads. It was ridiculous. Maybe 3,000. So keep in mind, it's only November right now, but we just got more and more leads every year. And because I was getting more and more leads, my sales people were getting more and more lazy. Like, no offense to them. They're probably not going to watch this, but if they do, like, why would you try super hard to sell a job? Like, if you're always full, like, if you're giving a lion a ton of food, they're probably going to be pretty unmotivated when you put a gazelle. Why? Because they're like, that gazelle is 50 feet in front of me. Why would I go after that one when there's going to be one 5 feet in front of me here in like a couple hours? And that was literally our mindset. It's so bad for the business. So yeah, a couple of things just to go a little bit more tactical, just so you guys, I could share some of the tactical stuff. With the new sales strategy, number one, we always present price in person now. So I never, ever email a quote. The other big thing that we do while we present a price in person is I do anchor upselling. And just to demonstrate anchor upselling, number one, I have a sales, I did a live sales call with someone on my YouTube channel. So I suggest that you watch that because I demonstrate it. But the psychology of it is you pitch at a much higher price. And we actually created basically a new program, a new product here at my concrete company, strictly for the purpose of pitching a higher price, bringing it down. Once we bring that price down and they're like, oh, this is so much better. If there's still a no, we do same day discounts. And we also do a financing discount, meaning if they don't finance their project, we give a discount. By the time that you take them from anchor upsell all the way down, like, they feel like they're getting such a great deal. And the funny thing is it's the same price. And just recently, it was like, I told you guys I bought a car for cash for my wife. And it was funny because you know how when like you buy a car and then they take you to the finance department and all that, and they're like, what insurance? I'm like, no insurance. And he's like, well, hold on a second, let me just give you some options. And he's like, oh, like, you should at least get windshield because like these windshields are really expensive. And I was like, well, how much? And he's like, it's going to be like $5,000. And I was like, nah, dude, I'll like pound sand. Like, hell no. And he's like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, let me see if I can give you some discounts, and kept giving me discounts. And then eventually we got to the point where it's like $1,800 for like 6 years of insurance. And I was also so tired of just like getting pitched. Eventually he was just like, does that work? And I was like, sure, dude. So I somehow, for some reason, bought window insurance. It was funny. I knew exactly what the guy was doing to me, and it worked. It was insane. I was like, God, it really is a good deal. Like, it's crazy. So present the price in person, start high, work your way down. Okay. Highly suggest you guys watch that YouTube video. That was everything with anchor upsells, how we present. By the way, I use Jobber now to do my quotes because I could show people multiple options. Jobber actually gives me Jobber for free to mention them here in the YouTube videos. I would have done it anyways because I actually use Jobber in my business, but I will give a free trial link down below in the description if you guys want to check that out. Number 5 is patience. When I say patience, I've always been a not patient person. I've been very impatient. But the reason why I say that I've learned more patience is I've been patient on a couple things. And one of them being limiting, like this is a good example, right? Purposely limiting supply and keeping demand high. So that way, think about like a supply and demand, right? Well, where this intersects is price. So if you could purposely, right, limit supply, well, price goes up. And so that's what we did this year. We had just as many leads as what we've ever done. And old impatient me didn't want to say no to opportunities, or I didn't want to let things basically like compound and have leverage. But this year, like having that leverage and having that patience, we were able to be the most profitable that we've ever been. And keep in mind, a lot of it wasn't even with price. Like we raised our prices a little bit. I'd say what actually happened is we were able to be more selective about jobs, right? In the past, if someone tried to price negotiate with us, or if they were trying to get us to a project that was like slightly out of scope, we would have bended our rules because we had to. We're like, oh my God, we got this huge business that we have all these guys we have to feed. And because we limited that a little bit, but we seriously increased demand and we purposely limited our supply, old me would have hired a ton of people. And then I would have been right back in the same situation. I had to cut prices. I basically would have had to do things that I wouldn't have wanted to do because I wasn't patient. And so I think for the first time in my professional career, I've really seen the benefits of being patient. And that's everything from the supply and demand, us purposely learning how to do that. Also, like we made a bunch of cash this year. Instead of me taking that cash and just like going out and buying tons of more stuff and being like, wow, we're just going to grow, right? Like I finally, for the first time, was like, let's just like, hold on a second. Let's like build out our base and our foundation. And what I'm realizing is like, as we do that, like I'm able to take risks that I wouldn't have taken before because number one, we're more profitable, but like when you start off with a better foundation, you could build a bigger house. And I never spent time on the foundation before. That actually reminds me of a game that I got to play that I actually learned at an Alex Hormozi event is there's a bunch of entrepreneurs and we all got into small groups and they gave us a bunch of like straw and marshmallow. And I think that was it. Just like straws and marshmallows. And they said, cool, build a house. You have 10 minutes. And at the end of 10 minutes, there was a team that won. And they're like, well, what'd you guys do to win? And they're like, oh, well, we just like didn't think at all. We just like built. And they did. They literally didn't game plan at all. They had 10 minutes, so they built the biggest building. But that building was very shaky. And so they went to that same team that won and they said, hey, if you had to keep building this building, what would you do? And they're like, oh my God, like we can't grow this building. Like, do you see their building was like, it's like, it was a miracle. It was still standing after 10 minutes. And then they posed the question to all of us and they said, hey, if you guys want to build the biggest building as fast as possible, you have to act with speed. And then they said, but let us challenge you. What if you had to change the way that you looked at that? Meaning that now instead of 5 minutes, you have 5 years to build that building. What would you have done? And we were like, oh man, well, now that you say that, like we probably would have thought about it. We would have made this big plan. We would have spent more time and built out the base. We would have made it wider and stronger. And that way it could support a lot more things. It was such a learning lesson for me because I had lacked patience so bad that I always thought just because the fastest way to get from here to here, I thought that that meant that you could also get from here to here faster. Not realizing that sometimes you have to build out the base first, right? Before you can make the most money all the way up here. Like imagine if you had like 2 builders, one side by side. One was building like a shed and the other was building a skyscraper. The guys who were building a shed built it in one day. And then they're going to look over to the side of them and they're going to be like, dude, what the hell are those guys doing next to us? Like they've been digging a hole the whole day. They're even going to come back in a month later and they're like, they're still on the hole. Like, those idiots. Like, did you see, we've already built 30 little rinky-dink sheds. Like, man, we got them. But then you come back in a decade and they're like, oh my God, how did they build that skyscraper? And then you realize sometimes you just have to focus on building the base, and you're not going to have that immediate gratification that you want, but those are the things that often move the needle the most. And there's so many things that I could think of to do that. So number one was getting rid of my landscape business. Huge pain, immediate, but allowed us to build the base, just get better at what we're already doing, made more money. And we have a way stronger foundation to grow into the future, like way stronger. Like, would I have time and money to spend on all the things that I did this year to improve myself, to learn better, things in sales, get better at marketing? No, heck no, not if I had my landscape company, right? So sometimes by not having as much of a peak, you could build that base, which will allow for a much more stable foundation. I know for a fact I will do better over time. And debatably, I'm already doing better because we're making more money. But anyways, other small things with building the foundation and being patient. Like, I see so many contractors now that I look at it, right? And old me, like, I never even took the time to get reviews. And what you don't realize is, like, because you're like, oh man, in the moment you're so busy and you're like, well, man, why would I get a review when I could spend that extra 15 or 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, like basically whatever it took? Why would I do that when I could just try to go make more money, right? Everyone's always focused on, like, what can I do that's going to get me the most money today? Well, sometimes if you just expand your time horizon, you're like, man, it's okay if I give a little bit of money right now so that I'll make more money in the future. And things like that are much better. Or even like hiring team members before you need them. Like, in the past, I would have never done that. Like, so many areas that we're changing that. So yeah, I want to pass that on. Number 7, LTV to CAC. So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer ratio. Actually, let's do lifetime gross profit, LTGP. So it's how many times someone buys from you times your product price times your gross profit. So let's just do a very quick example. Let's just say that you do $10,000 jobs like concrete, and you on average only sell to a customer once, like ever, okay? And you do 30% profit margins, gross profit. That means you make $3,000. That's it. So imagine, this was such a big turning point for me. Imagine Starbucks, which sells $7 cups of coffee, will make more from the customer than you or me. I'll say me because I'm not trying to be mean. It was me like a year ago. So I'm talking to me. Okay. I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm talking to old me. And I would have been like, well, no. Well, they can't. They sell coffee for $7. And then they're like, yeah, but their customers come back. And I'm like, yeah, but like, it can't be that much. And when someone actually showed me the math, the average Starbucks customer goes back so many times. On average, they spend $25,000 with Starbucks. And instead of measly, say, 30% gross profit, they've got 80%. So Starbucks makes, just say, give or take, 20 grand of gross profit from selling coffee. And I was making, say, okay, like my old actual like ratio was about $13,000 project, and we did about 50% gross profit. So 6,500, which is, considered good for residential concrete. But I was like, oh my God, Starbucks makes 3 times as much as me selling little rinky-dink coffees because they just have a better business model. And so here's where I've applied that and where I want to apply that in my concrete company. So number 1, bigger and better customers, you can't be so focused on the other side of the equation, which is cost to acquire a customer, right? Because ask yourself, right? What's going to be cheaper to acquire? A GC, or let's just say a certain homeowner that they have $5 million net worth and they plan on building a $3 million house, and like, you think it's going to be harder to convince that guy to give you their business or some rinky-dink guy that's broke? Probably the guy that is rich. He's going to be harder to become a customer. So in my opinion, and what I was doing is, so many people are focused on the cost to acquire a customer. They want the cheapest lead possible, the cheapest sale possible. They don't focus at all about the other side of the equation, getting people to buy more, serving bigger customers, that at the end of the day, you could actually just make more money if you focused on getting the right type of customers. And let me give you guys an example. So after I heard that, I was like, man, what can I do in my business to make a change? So for next year, I'll be making a pretty key hire, our first outbound sales rep, to actually go after some bigger and better accounts. So think about when you hire an outbound sales rep and you're actually paying them, let's just say if it takes them 2 months to make a sale, you're like, and let's just say they make $10K a month. You're like, oh my God, 20 grand for one sale. And let's just say that that $20,000 sale only gives you a $10,000 job. You're like, how could that ever be worth it? Well, by pure happenstance, we had someone call us just recently. They're actually a GC, and that GC services utility company. And they called us and they're like, hey, so this utility company, this big one by us, every single time that they have to do tiny little jobs, like they have to tear out like a section of city sidewalk to put utilities under it, we got hired to come fix it. And so they've already sent us 5 jobs. And they pay so well. And they're like, oh yeah, we have this contract for 3 years. And so just think about that, right? Like, what would you pay to acquire that type of customer over a little rinky-dink customer? Okay. And this works on all levels. It doesn't have to just be going from like residential to commercial. That's not necessarily even what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I'm focusing way more on serving bigger and better customers because they could pay more, they buy more times, versus worrying as much about the cost to acquire a customer. I'm just paying a lot more attention to that. So I challenge you to look into that in your business and see if you are being too limited, worrying too much about your cost to acquire a customer, with not realizing that you need to consider both. What size of customer is it? And then how much would you pay to get that customer? And even if you have to pay 10 times more to get a customer, if they are worth 100 times more to you, you would make that bet, or you should make that bet every single time. Some other learning lessons that I've had are some learning lessons within marketing, which I don't want to spoil too much because I'm about to come out with like a huge, like I said, 4-hour, maybe 6-hour free course all about marketing for you guys. By the way, I still encourage you guys to subscribe. I get that this video is probably not nearly as good as that because I'm just kind of riffing. That I'm like literally taking pages and pages of notes. So I promise you guys it'll be better. But I want to just give you guys a couple like high level learning lessons for right now. Number one is, and this sounds simple, I only laugh because it's like so silly. And I don't know why I fought this for so long. The most important thing when it comes to marketing is having a starving crowd. And you're like, well, what does that mean? One of the reasons why I shut down my landscape company is because I realized it has the same seasonality as my concrete company. It's just dumb. It doesn't really buy me any benefit, right? One of the downsides of my concrete company is that we are really busy from like April till October. And so 6 months we're busy, 6 months we're not. And so what we did to make a change is we started a lighting company, right? And now it's like so funny because we have a little bit of organic presence with our lighting company, and we're selling all kinds of lighting jobs right now. And my salesman comes up to me and he's like, dude, whatever you're doing in marketing, you just got to keep doing it. And I'm like, what do you mean doing in marketing? He's like, well, dude, I'm so busy. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything. He's like, what do you mean you're not doing anything? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not spending any money on marketing. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dude, it's just because everyone wants lights right now. And there's not enough people to do it. It'd be like if you're a bear and expecting to catch the same amount of salmon during the salmon rush as you do in winter when they typically hibernate. As silly as that sounds, what I realized is sometimes, instead of like, it would be like that bear, which instead of hibernating during the winter, or maybe finding a different opportunity, maybe they should move south, for instance, right? And just waiting for the salmon rush. It'd be like going out in the freezing winter and trying to catch salmon. Like you probably could. It's just really, really hard. But sometimes it's like, man, why fight that? Like it was such like a no duh moment after I really realized like what was going on. And instead of always fighting the current, like, why don't I just go get a different stream? Like when this one's downhill, it's great. And then all of a sudden turns uphill. Well, then I'll just like go walk down the road. I'm like, oh, this one's going downhill. Cool. I'll hop in. Highly suggest if you guys are like always worried about seasonality and you're like, oh, what's wrong with my marketing? Like as stupid as it sounds, sometimes you just have to actually sell something that people want during that time of year. Okay. And we sell concrete during this time of year too, but it's a heck of a lot easier if you could pair seasonality with opposite seasonality. Big breakthrough there. And kind of related to that, but not 100%, is learning the different levels of buyer awareness. Okay. And so I say this too as like a marketing tip when it comes to ads, because what I realized is a lot of people will only run ads to the most aware people. And think about it, like that's like the 1% of people that are actually have like a problem with their concrete who want a quote right now. That's always where you should start. And you would say something in an ad like, hey, are you looking to get a concrete job done? Well, I can help. We've been pouring concrete and blah, blah, blah for a couple decades, and I can help you out with whatever, a driveway, a patio, just let me know. Like that's like a very basic, like I can help you, you're interested, right? The next person could be more of like a needs convinced, right? They're convinced that they want concrete, but they're not convinced that they want it now. But the crazy part is, right, there might be this many people that are looking for a quote right the second, you don't have to convince them, those are your cheapest audience to go after. What I didn't realize is if you could actually spend a little bit more money and up your messaging, you could say something along the lines of someone that knows that they need concrete, but they don't know now. I did an ad recently, and like, think of the difference with this ad, right? I said something more along the lines of smart investors buy low and sell high, and smart homeowners do the same with their concrete. In the winter, I basically like used that ad and I talked about the winter and why it's the best time to do concrete. And that ad, although our cost per lead is higher, I'm able to spend so much more money. Like, I'm not getting capped out at like a measly, say, 15 or 20 leads a month. Like, I'm getting tons of leads per month right now. It's just the cost is higher. So I learned that if you want to tap into bigger markets, one, you have to be okay with it being more expensive. So you have to have a better business model, which is where you go back to LTV to CAC, right? Like, you have to be good at selling people. You have to be good at retaining people. You have to be good at getting referrals. But if you do all that stuff, then you could start spending more to acquire customers. And how you do that is by upping your buyer awareness level. I was convinced in the past that I was capped at our level of performance where we were, not realizing that there's so many more people that could be convinced to buy my product. I just have to hit them from a different angle, right? You are basically having to remind them of the pain because they're not in pain right this second. Okay. Like, think of it from like a doctor standpoint. If a doctor was, say, selling foot surgeries, well, how easy would it be if someone was in foot pain and they were actively looking for a surgeon because they said, dude, like, I can't walk. And like, they were in pain today, versus what if someone just knew that they needed a foot surgery, but they could push it off, right? Well, then all of a sudden you have to create that pain for them. You would say, hey, do you actually know that your foot pain is going to get way worse if you keep waiting? And on top of that, your likelihood of success of actually fixing your foot goes way down the longer that you wait. Well, there are going to be so many people that are pushing off that pain for the future. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. But basically, if you are stuck with your marketing, I would double check, because I've seen a lot of people, they are marketing only to the people that are already actively looking, and they're missing the way broad market of all the people that could be convinced if you build up the pain enough. Okay. Another thing that I realized is the hook when it comes to marketing is everything. And so what we did at Concrete CEO is we went back through and we analyzed all of our old ads. And it was so funny because like all of our old ads, they sounded all like the same. But what was funny is it wasn't the same message. Okay. It was the same beginning. And that's when I realized, and this was like before I hired my marketing coach, etc. I was like, that's like the weirdest thing. And what you realize, and what most marketers tell you, is that by the time that you've done your hook, you've spent 80% of your marketing dollar. Meaning that like almost all of your marketing efforts should go towards just capturing people's attention. And also being very strategic about what you say, right? Because if you say, concrete deals 10% off, and that's your hook, well, yeah, you'll probably get a ton of leads. But then you're also going to be like, dude, all my people are price shoppers. And it's like, well, dude, did you hear what you said? That'd be like if you kept catching the same fish over and over again. And you're like, God, why am I eating carp? And they're like, dude, like, did you know that carp liked worms? And you'd be like, oh, really? Be like, yeah, you just have to like change the bait. So for instance, what you have to think about, if you want a higher level clientele, you have to put your mind in that higher level person's head. So your hook could be something like, for maybe needs convinced, tired of dealing with bad contractors so much to the point that you almost don't even want to do your project. Hi, I'm Tyler. I'm with blah, blah, blah concrete, and we specialize in having top tier communication and whatever, right? Then you go onto your ad. So what you have to think about is that type of ad, you're going to pay more per lead. But the type of person that comes through on the other side of it, I can almost guarantee you is going to be so much better than if you say, concrete deals 10% off. Because guess what? The person that's rich doesn't care to save 10%. What they do care to do is have a great experience, because they have a lot of money, very little time. Okay. So just realize, and what I had to realize is, if you want to improve your marketing, improve your hook. Other things that I really want to get into on the free course, and well, tons of stuff. But the other big ones are proof and brand. We're investing so much more heavily on building up our reviews, building up our business, building up like what people think about us and not having to capture every little thing right now, right? And so we've done things more a little untraditional, like magazines, and intentionally pairing ourselves with like really high-end things. And also like almost kind of like those stupid car commercials, you know, when you watch and like they're like a Jeep driving through the mountains and they're trying to be like, and you're like, oh man, like that's pretty cool. And then you're like, oh wait, that's a car commercial? You're like, that's so dumb. Why would Jeep do that? And then you realize that all Jeep's trying to do, let's think about it with like Nike and with Michael Jordan. Because Nike, before that they were really big, they said, we want to get in basketball. So instead of them just going out and telling people we're good at basketball, they show Nike and they show Michael Jordan. And that elevates, because Michael Jordan's up here, that elevates the way that people look at them. And so we are trying to be very intentional with that, which is creating our brand and creating proof. And it's been so wild to see what is actually done indirectly to our lead volume and the people that actually come through, how much more they trust us. So I can't wait to get into that in that full marketing course. The next is culture. And I feel a little dumb because last year I was talking about the same thing. And last year I had hired an ops manager, and in my lessons learned, I said, oh, I hired an ops manager. They're bad for the culture. And so I'm going to move them. I'm going to move them somewhere else in the business. Well, the thing is I did. And I thought because that person wasn't in charge anymore, that it was going to be okay. And because keep in mind, right, this person was probably, actually not even probably, they were the top performer on my team. They were the best at selling. They were the most intelligent. They had so many things. And so I thought that by moving them out of the operation manager position and into, they were actually just in the sales position, helping run the sales team. They weren't like for sure running the sales team, but they were like more in that management position. I was like, oh, well, if it's just that, they're going to be so much less stressed. And because they're going to be less stressed, they're not going to be so rude and so mean and all this stuff. And so midway through the year, like I could not take it anymore, because even though I thought by moving this person into a less stressful role, nothing changed. Okay, nothing changed. And if anything, it was worse. Like we literally had a cancer in our company this year, which is probably the other reason why we did less in revenue. But we had someone who was actively talking down about me, about the other owner, about the company. And keep in mind, this person was smart. Like he could talk his way out of anything. And so I was noticing, I was like, damn, I think that like my whole sales team like hates me. And I'm like, why? Like what happened? And like, I would go to this person and be like, hey, like why? Like what's going on? And he would blame on other people. And what was so funny is he was doing the same thing to the salespeople, but about me. He would go and be like, oh, Tyler this or Tyler that. And he was this crazy cancer inside our company. And it was the biggest learning lesson I think I've ever had. I honestly should have put this towards the very beginning of the video, because what I realized is I no longer will ever care about how smart someone is or how good they are at their job. If they are not the right culture, I will never, ever, ever, ever allow someone to work with me. I don't care. Okay. I do not care. And what was crazy is they were the top performer in our company, and we took a huge hit when I fired them, because I fired them in like the middle of summer. Okay. I think it was like July. I fired them in like July, and that was our busy season. And I was like, holy crap, we are so doomed, this, and that. And at first we kind of were like, we were really struggling. But then after I got back in, I was working with the sales team. We realized that like, oh my God, I just realized like you guys aren't crazy. And now you guys don't think I'm crazy. We realized that the person between us was just causing wildfire everywhere. They're causing problems. He was telling the sales guys that I was pissed, and he was telling me that the sales guys were whiny babies. And he was purposely pinning us against each other. I don't even know why he did that. I still don't get it. I think it was to gain power within the company. But regardless, and it was more than just the salespeople, by the way. It's just that was only the people that he had leverage on, because I took him away from all the other people in the company. For sure, biggest learning lesson is I will never, ever, ever again hire someone who does not fit well with the team in the way that I want the team to work. You know, and maybe it'd be a little bit different. Like say, for instance, if you hire like a social media person or God, I'm even trying to think of a role that you would do that for. Someone who doesn't really work very much with the team, so it doesn't really matter how they act. Still, I wouldn't really recommend that. But all I know for sure, any leadership position or anyone who's going to have any type of stake in the company at all, I will never not I will never ignore that again. So the other big thing that I realized that helped a lot is just getting an office and having like a common spot to work. I never understood why you'd ever do that and spend thousands of dollars until I did it. And I've got to say, like, our team culture is the best it's ever been. And the last one, guys, that I've really learned is just to constantly remind myself to extend my time horizon of where I want to be. And forcing yourself to do so, number one, you make decisions differently. And part of that is like all about the foundation building and everything that I was talking about there. But number two is you just realize like there's a lot of things that you would do today that wouldn't make sense to do today if you weren't going to the future. Like, for instance, in the future, we are going to be offering a done with you program here at Concrete CEO instead of just a done for you program. And because of that, I was like, man, we have to like seriously document all of the procedures and come up with strategies and make it really easy for people to install these systems that we're learning that we're doing for our clients if they want to run their own marketing. And so in the immediate term, if I wasn't thinking long term, I'm like, there is no way that I need a strategic marketing director right now, right? And when I say that, like someone that is going to be paying, paying a good bit of money per year. But when you zoom out and you look at the long-term play, it becomes more evident that that person should really come on now. And let me give you guys like another example. Like, we got into that office and we got a small office. Like, part of me wishes that I would have almost thought a little bit farther out, because back then I didn't need a big office, but I should have known that I was going to need a big office, right? And so we're already talking with my landlord, and there's actually a bigger office in my same building, and we're currently negotiating to basically move all our stuff and basically get twice the office space. So that's the thing, right? Is sometimes like forcing yourself to play in the future, although it sounds dumb, thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the line, you're like, well, that's dumb. Like, why would I do that? It's because sometimes, right? And it kind of goes back to the skyscraper thing. If you want to build a skyscraper, there's going to be things that seem stupid right now, but not if that's your end goal is to build a skyscraper. With that being said, just that continuous reminder of, think bigger, dream bigger, bigger goals. And if you are going to have big goals, like, you have to build your company different now than what you would do. Because sometimes the quickest money isn't going to be the best money or the best company long-term. So with that being said, I hope that you guys get value from this. Again, make sure you guys subscribe. I'm telling you guys, this marketing course that's going to come out is going to be sick. So with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.